For the time being, the current form of AI, it's about solving one single task that is sometimes beyond human capabilities.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to another episode of our podcast. My name is Wadha Kindi from the Digital Transformation team at Ookyo, and I will be your host for this podcast episode. Today we will be talking about artificial intelligence with Asmاء الفضل, who is an artificial intelligence senior specialist here at Ookyo. While I know that this is a trendy topic that people in the industry are constantly talking about, our guest today will be sharing a different perspective on it. Asmاء, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive in?
Sure. My name is Asmاء الفضل. I have a bachelor's in computer science from Sultan Qaboos University, and I have a master's in artificial intelligence from UK. I worked at Ookyo Methanol since 2011.
So thank you for joining us, Asma. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of buzz going on around artificial intelligence. And as a nerd myself, I've been using the term a lot. But could you please tell our listeners what is it exactly?
Well, the question has no direct answer. Many definitions have been developed since the 1950s and even before. The first concept of AI was revolved around human. Basically, they want a machine that thinks and acts like human, and maybe becomes superior to human.
But don't you think that we have already reached to a point where machines are superior to humans? So I don't know about you, but for me, my phone is everything. It does everything for me, and it does even beyond what I'm capable of doing.
Well, that's the point. It does everything for you. You're the focal point here, and the AI is just a tool that can be used by human and supervised by human, and does not work independently. By the way, however, as years go by, and due to many challenges in applying the AI to the real-world problems, the idea of AI diverted by the business, in fact. So this doesn't mean that the initial concept of AI has been vanished. No, it's still there, but we called it, or it's known as a super AI or strong AI. And the current form of AI is what we call it narrow or weak AI.
With the pacing of technology as we see it today, do you think we'll be able to see strong AI applications in the near future?
No, I don't think so. Not in the near future. For the time being, the current form of AI, it's about solving one single task. And that is sometimes beyond human capabilities. We cannot generalize the usage of AI on many problems. That's why we can't till now reach the strong or super AI.
Okay, so I don't know if you've seen Iron Man's AI assistant in the Marvel movies, but I really want to reach to a point where I can have my own AI assistant. But where are we seeing AI currently, since we haven't still reached to these strong AI applications yet?
AI is emerging. You can see it in your phone, computer, just around us. It's not anymore a fancy word that lays on the research papers or applied to the robots in Japan. It drives your car, plane, identifies you, not only by your face, even by your gait or voice or eyes. It's simply used in our day-to-day life, even without our notice. It's emerging in our life, and it will still continue to grow.
Could you give us examples of applications that we are using in our lives right now?
Okay, so let me give you an example that being utilized a lot by our generations. In social media, the targeted advertisement on social media is an AI application.
So the ads that I'm seeing on Instagram is driven by AI?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it is driven by AI. It is somehow using the machine learning technology in order to personalize the ads that is targeted by the companies to you.
That's honestly cool. But what about business-wise? So Ookyo is part of the oil and gas industry. Do you believe AI is being embraced in it?
Definitely. There are various applications in AI for oil and gas industry. For instance, AI is used in what we call intelligent manufacturing, where we use real-time data and machine learning in manufacturing processes to optimize the production and minimize the waste. And in fact, we are planning at Ookio to implement a digital twin, an AI digital twin that will give a better view for the plant's processes and automate the decision-making using these processes' data.
Okay, so AI is not just something that is only in research papers and news articles, but there are a lot of people that are actually skeptical and they refuse to embrace technology either in their personal lives or even to help with business processes. So why do you think, in your personal opinion, that we should focus on accepting and using AI?
Because it makes people's life easier. And not only easier, it's more accurate, where decisions are based on data, not guts. By the way, the scientists are expecting dramatic decreasing in the accidents death toll with the self-driving cars. It's also expected that the human life expectancy rate will increase due to the applications of AI in healthcare sector. Because it assists doctors to do or perform operations more accurately and detect cancers in the screening tests and so on. That's why we can simply embrace AI in our life.
Okay, so Asma, it seems to me that you are very pro-AI and you are encouraging people to utilize it. But are you not concerned with the issue of what if it ends up controlling the world? We keep seeing it in many sci-fi movies and books that there might come a day when computers are actually more intelligent than us and they end up wiping out humanity. Should we not be worried?
I believe these concerns are coming from technologies gurus like Bill Gates and Elon Musk. Saying that AI will control the world with the current capabilities is just unreal. The AI focuses on a single task. And as I said previously, it cannot be generalized to use on different problems or even using different data. If it was used on your data, you cannot use it on someone else's data. So many concepts around AI is still debatable. For instance, the common sense. It's so difficult for AI to grasp it. So in one hand, it's quite easy to use our human intuition to understand the context of any narration and reading between the lines, let's say. However, on the other hand, the main challenge of AI is to define the common sense. And unless we have let's say a mathematical representation of the common sense, then this challenge will be addressed. Until then, fearing AI is completely unreasonable and exaggeration.
So the irony that Bill Gates and Elon Musk, the people that most benefited from technology, are scaring people away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's completely absurd to me.
It's too early for that, and the AI situation is like a small kitten, and you think it's a lion.
Okay. So while what you have mentioned is making me a little bit less intimidated by the whole concept of AI, it still doesn't eliminate the fact that it is disrupting the tech industry and it is changing the way people interact with technology. So are there any kind of regulations to ensure the safety regarding this change?
The regulation is mandatory to govern the AI, or else things are going wrong somehow. AI is all about data, and unlike the traditional applications, in fact, the data is what develop AI applications. Machine learning is a concept used in AI to develop the intelligence core of the system, where the algorithm will be trained over huge data and understand it by analyzing the patterns of the data and finding some correlations between the data points and the parameters. Hence, companies are starting what I like to call the fever of data, where they collect necessary and unnecessary data from people over social media and internet just for the sake of storing them. But the latest European Union regulations have put things into a kind of right path, where social media companies, the big companies, face charges over this. And we all know the case of Cambridge Analytica, where they used personal data to manipulate political views. But again, to insist on the point of the strong and the weak AI, behind the artificial intelligence system of Cambridge Analytica, there were human. There were some decision makers who decided to target these peoples and to manipulate the political view, and they use an AI as a tool for that. Let's talk about the self-driving cars companies. Until they couldn't reach to a decision for the famous non-trolley dilemma.
AI is such an interesting topic that we could talk for hours about, but we are at the end of our episode. So thank you, Asma, for taking the time and being part of our podcast.
Thank you, Wadha. Pleasure.
We hope our listeners enjoyed our deep dive into artificial intelligence and learned something new. We'll see you on the next podcast episode.